Friedrich Hoffmann wasn't supposed to see anyone that day, not at his son's grave. He had gone there the same way he had for months, slow steps, quiet breath, carrying the kind of grief that settles into a man's bones. But as he rounded the last row of headstones, he stopped cold. A woman in a worn military jacket stood before the grave, shaking, crying so hard it sounded like her whole body was breaking. 2 infants were strapped to her chest, their tiny faces pressed into her shoulders, and 2 older boys clung to her hands like they were afraid the wind might take her away. Something about the scene felt heavy, unusual, like a moment that shouldn't exist. And when Friedrich stepped closer and whispered, "What are you doing at my son's grave?" The oldest boy lifted his face toward him, eyes red, voice thin and trembling as he spoke words no father should ever hear. Whatever the boy said, it stopped the world. It punched the air from Friedrich's lungs and left him standing there, unable to blink, unable to speak. Because what the child revealed wasn't just painful, it rewired everything Friedrich believed he knew about his son, about the life he lived, and about the choices he made before he passed away. It was impossible, unthinkable, a truth so unexpected that Friedrich's hands shook as he stumbled backward, staring at the woman and the children as if they had stepped out of a life he never knew existed. And right in that silent, trembling moment, you can almost feel the weight pushing down on everyone involved. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd truly love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Friedrich Hoffmann had lived most of his life surrounded by privilege, order, and certainty. But none of it mattered anymore. Ever since his only son passed away, the world felt muted, as if someone had turned down the color and left him wandering through shades of gray. The cemetery had become the only place he still felt anything: grief, regret, the echo of a life that would never return. He went there quietly, without telling anyone, like a man visiting the last remaining doorway to someone he loved. But that day, standing before the woman in the military jacket, everything inside him tightened. Her shoulders shook under the weight of exhaustion, and the children around her clung to her like they expected danger to appear any second. Something was wrong, something unsaid, and as Friedrich forced a breath, he couldn't understand why she looked at him like he was the one she feared. He tried to steady his voice. Who are you?" She wiped her face with the back of her sleeve, eyes swollen, breath unsteady, as if speaking might break her. The oldest boy squeezed her hand, whispering something too soft to catch, urging her to tell the truth, and then, with a trembling inhale, she whispered the words that made Friedrich's chest tighten so sharply he had to hold the grave marker just to stay upright. "They're your grandchildren." The world didn't just shift, it tore open. But why hadn't he known? Why would his own son hide something this big? And why did this woman look like she expected him to scream, or run, or accuse her of lying? The questions stacked in Friedrich's mind like falling bricks, each one heavier than the last. Still shaking, the woman reached into her jacket and pulled out something that made his breath catch. A letter. Old, folded, worn at the edges as if someone had carried it for too long. Friedrich's name was written across the front in a handwriting he knew better than his own. His son's handwriting. Sealed, unopened, addressed to him. The sight of it made his throat tighten and his eyes sting, because this wasn't just a message. It was something his son wanted him to see before everything went wrong. Friedrich reached out slowly, almost afraid to touch it, afraid to learn what had been hidden from him for so long. Why would his son leave behind children he never told him about? What circumstances were so heavy, so frightening, that this woman stood here today looking like she might collapse from the weight of them? As the letter settled into Friedrich's unsteady hands, every question, every fear, seemed to gather around him like cold air, and just as he inhaled, ready to ask more, everything faded to black. Friedrich stood there holding the sealed letter while the woman steadied herself, her breath clouding in the cold air. She spoke as if each word cost her something. She told him she had served in the same military unit as his son, that long nights in the field had pushed them closer in ways neither of them planned. She said they kept their relationship private because of strict protocols and the fear of damaging his son's reputation within the unit. Their bond grew in the quiet spaces between missions, in whispered conversations shared under dim lights, in moments when danger made emotions rise faster than reason. But then she said something that made Friedrich's stomach churn. She disappeared before his son died. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. And she claimed his son searched for her until the very end. Listening to her, Friedrich felt something twist painfully inside him, but he wasn't ready to believe her. He tightened his jaw and shook his head. "This is manipulation," he said, voice trembling with anger he didn't fully understand. "A scam, a way to pull money from the Hoffman name." The woman flinched, as if she expected that exact accusation. The children clung to her legs, fearful of his tone. But Friedrich had spent years surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Investors, distant relatives, strangers who saw his wealth before they saw him. So how could he trust a woman who appeared out of nowhere claiming to have 4 children fathered by his late son? His heart wanted to believe she was lying. It would be easier, cleaner. But then she began revealing things she couldn't possibly know unless she had truly been close to him. She spoke of his son's quiet habits, his restless nights, the way he trembled after certain missions, and a fear he'd carried since childhood, something even Friedrich had nearly forgotten. Her voice cracked as she continued. She reached into her bag and produced a small ring, simple, silver, engraved on the inside. Friedrich's breath hitched. It was his son's handwriting, etched into the metal, containing a phrase only the two of them knew. Something from when his son was 8 years old, something private, never shared outside the family. Then came the photos, grainy snapshots of his son holding the older boys, laughing in a way Friedrich hadn't seen him laugh since he was young. A voice note followed, the speaker crackling, but unmistakably his son's voice, whispering the woman's name, telling her he wanted a future with her, telling her he was scared his father would never understand. Next, she unfolded a half-written letter addressed to Friedrich, his son apologizing for keeping secrets, promising he would explain everything when he returned home. Each reveal struck him harder than the last, chipping away at his disbelief. But the final reveal nearly dropped him to his knees. She pulled the collar of one of the boys' shirts aside, showing a small tattoo behind the child's shoulder, one identical to a tattoo Friedrich and his son had gotten together years ago, a symbol only the two of them understood, a reminder of a promise made during a difficult chapter in their lives. Seeing it inked onto the skin of a child who looked so much like his son stole the words right out of him, his anger drained, replaced by a shaking realization he didn't know how to accept. Still, doubt clung to him like cold rain. He steadied himself, voice rough as gravel, and said, "We need proof, real proof." She nodded without argument. "I want the truth as much as you do," she whispered. And so, standing beside the grave of the man who connected them, they agreed to take a DNA test. The days that followed were heavy, filled with silence, unspoken questions, and the weight of possibilities neither of them knew how to face. Friedrich found himself replaying their conversations, replaying the photos, the voice note, the half-written letter. Each memory tugged him closer to a truth he wasn't sure he was ready for. When the test results finally came in, he felt the world hold still. The woman waited beside him, her hands trembling, her children pressed close to her side. Friedrich opened the envelope slowly, almost afraid of what waited inside. The truth was there in clear, undeniable words. The children were his son's biological children, but the results didn't solve the real problem. They only made things more complicated. As the weight of that reality settled, everything inside Friedrich changed, and the story took a direction none of them were prepared for. Fade out.